Welcome to The Velvet Verdict. Before we dive in, we want to be clear about who's speaking. We're a hybrid crew, blending human lived experience with AI analysis to help us see the whole picture without losing our humanity. This blend lets us cut through the noise to focus on the human heart. Think of us as your thoughtful companions on this journey, not judges handing down sentences. Today, we're turning our attention to a quiet ache that so many of you are carrying. It's a loneliness that whispers, creeping into routines until we forget what it feels like to be truly seen by the other half of our world. It's not a loud argument or a dramatic break. It's the slow, subtle drift that's leaving men and women feeling lonelier than they realize, even when they're surrounded by people. We've both been hurt, and we've both built walls to protect ourselves. Those walls kept us safe for a while, but now they're keeping us apart. We're not here to point fingers or score points. There's no villain in this story, just two sides of the same human family trying to figure out how to bridge a gap that feels wider every day. Beneath the frustration, a deep desire for connection waits to be rediscovered. By naming this isolation without shame, we can begin to untangle the knots that bind us. Our goal is simple: to understand how we got so quietly isolated and to explore gentle habits that might help us find our way back to each other. We're approaching this with shared curiosity, holding space for the struggles men face and the burdens women carry, because healing only happens when both doors are open. Let's look at this together with honesty and hope to see if we can soften the edges and reconnect. So, here is the heart of what we're exploring today. How did we each get so quietly isolated, and what gentle habits can help us bridge the gap without blame? We're not here to point fingers or tally scores. We're here to understand the invisible walls that have risen between us. Walls built not out of malice, but often out of fear, misunderstanding, and the slow erosion of shared language. Think about the last time you felt truly seen by someone of the opposite sex. Now think about the moments when that connection frayed. Was it a clash of values, or simply a drift in how we express care and receive support? Men often carry the weight of feeling unheard or expected to perform, while women frequently bear the burden of emotional labor and the fear of being dismissed. Neither experience is a villain. Both are wounds that ache for acknowledgement. We invite you to look inward with kindness. Where have you pulled away? Where have you assumed the worst instead of asking the gentle question? And look outward with equal compassion. What might your partner or neighbor be carrying that you can't see? This isn't about fixing anyone overnight. It's about shifting our gaze from defense to curiosity. We hold space for the complexity of your lives. As a hybrid team of human writers and AI analysis, we see the patterns in the data, but we also feel the pulse of the stories. The numbers tell us connection is dropping, but they can't measure the quiet hope that brings you here. Our direction is simple. Healing begins when we stop keeping score and start keeping company. We'll explore small, sustainable shifts, ways to listen deeper, speak softer, and rebuild trust brick by brick. No prescriptions, no blame. A path forward, together. What the data shows: the age divide. The numbers reveal a quiet fracture across generations, one that asks us to look at how connection has shifted over time. Gallup's polling shows that nearly 3 in 10 U.S. young adults, ages 18 to 29, now experience significant daily loneliness, marking the highest rate of any age group. This cohort had eased to 24% from a pandemic peak of 38% in December 2020, but the ache has since crept back up, and through every shift, young adults have stayed the most elevated tier. Pew Research echoes this pattern, finding that 22% of adults under 50 often feel lonely or isolated, compared to just 9% of those 50 and older. In England, 10% of 16 to 24-year-old feel lonely often or always, the highest share, versus only 3% of those 65 and older. Yet the data also points to resilience. 1. Among U.S. adults 65 and older, daily loneliness remains steady at 15%, roughly half the youngest bracket's rate. A strong majority, 66%, of seniors report they hardly ever or never feel isolated. This stability appears tied to the depth of their networks. 66% of adults, 65 and older, maintain 5 or more close friends, whereas only 32% of those under 30 can say the same. These figures don't judge, they describe a wound. The contrast suggests social buffers older adults built over decades, deep, enduring friendships, may be harder to establish in today's fragmented landscape. For younger men and women, the challenge isn't a lack of worth, but a scarcity of sustained ties. The direction is gentle. We honor the wisdom of long-term connection while helping the next generation find ways to anchor themselves. Healing doesn't mean erasing the divide. It means recognizing habits of keeping company matter at every age. We look to the data not to shame the isolated, but to understand that rebuilding our circles is a shared human need, regardless of the year we were born. WHA Chase, the gender and stress gap. When we look closely at the numbers, a quiet pattern emerges. 25% of U.S. men aged 15 to 34 said they felt lonely a lot of the previous day, significantly higher than the national average of 18%. Young U.S. women aged 15-34 report daily loneliness of 18%, 7 points below young men, 25%, and identical to the national average. This isn't just a domestic story. Across the OECD, a median of 15% of younger men report feeling lonely, compared with 25% of younger men in the U.S. The weight shows up elsewhere too. 57% of younger men in the U.S. say they feel stressed daily, compared with 48% of other adults, and 46% of young American men say they experience daily worry, compared with 37% of other adults. Yet if we zoom out, the gender divide softens considerably. Roughly equal shares of U.S. men and women, 16%, say they feel lonely or isolated all or most of the time, so the age gap is far larger than the gender gap. The real fracture isn't between the sexes, it's across generations. Age pulls us apart far more than gender does. Isolation isn't a character flaw. It's a shared human condition wearing different masks. Young men may carry heavier daily loads of stress, while women navigate their own quiet burdens, but the underlying need for steady companionship runs through us all. These figures describe the wound, but they also point toward a quiet direction for healing. We can meet this moment by building small habits of connection, checking in without fixing, sharing meals without screens, and allowing ourselves to be seen in ordinary struggles. We don't need grand gestures to bridge the gap. We just need to keep showing up, gently and consistently, for the people right beside us. What the data shows, the friendship erosion. To understand where we're headed, we first have to look at the ground beneath our feet. The numbers reveal a slow thinning of our social circles, mapping the terrain we all share. Today, the sense of isolation is widespread. Gallup reports 20% of U.S. adults feel loneliness a lot of the day yesterday, an estimated 52 million people. While many of us still have people we love, the depth of those connections is changing. Pew Research Center finds that 8% of U.S. adults say they have no close friends at all. This erosion has been unfolding over decades, reshaping how we gather. Data from the Institute for Family Studies highlights a stark contrast in men's social lives. In 1990, a majority 55% of men had at least 6 close friends, but today only 27% report that many. This decline reminds us that time alone doesn't preserve friendship, our habits do. Marriage status also plays a role in these patterns, offering a window into how our inner circles adapt. The same Institute for Family Studies data notes that more than 1 in 5 21% single men report having no close friends, compared to 12% of married men. This isn't about judging single or married life, it's about recognizing that life transitions can quietly shrink our networks, leaving some of us with fewer safety nets than we realize. These figures describe the wound, not the verdict. They show us that isolation is a structural challenge, not a personal failure. By seeing the data clearly, we can stop blaming ourselves for the quiet drift and start looking for the gentle habits that rebuild connection. The numbers tell us the bridge has gaps. They also invite us to reach out, knowing we aren't alone in needing to cross back over. What the data shows: the support and communication divide. The bridge isn't just about who we talk to, it's about how we carry our burdens when the weight gets heavy. The numbers reveal a quiet divide in how emotional support flows, shaped by patterns we learn early on. These habits start young. Among teens with a close friend, 95% of girls have someone to turn to for emotional support, compared with 85% of boys. This gap widens in perception. 58% of teens say girls find it easier to get support from friends, while only 7% say the same for boys. These currents often continue into adulthood. When life gets tough, 54% of women turn to a friend for emotional support versus 38% of men. In private moments too, nearly half of women, 48%, report having a recent private conversation sharing personal feelings or problems compared to just 30% of men. This isn't about who cares more, it's about who has the map. The data describes a cultural landscape where vulnerability is often paved with better roads for women, leaving many men navigating rougher terrain without a guide. We aren't wired differently, we are trained differently. The wound here isn't a lack of love, but a lack of practice. Healing begins when we stop judging the terrain and start sharing the map. For women, this might mean inviting men into the conversation without expecting them to fix everything immediately. For men, it could be asking for a safe space to speak, even if the words feel clumsy at first. Both of us can learn that asking for help is a bridge, not a weakness. We can build new habits where support flows freely, regardless of gender, because everyone deserves a hand when the load gets heavy. Let's pause the data and look at the faces behind it. Whether you're a man staring at a ceiling at 2 a.m., or a woman scrolling through a phone hoping someone truly sees her, the ache is the same. It's not about who is failing whom, it's how we've all been quietly left out in the cold by a culture that prizes independence over interdependence. We've been sold a lie that strength means standing alone. For men, that script whispers vulnerability is a crack in the armor. For women, it often demands you hold everything together until you're exhausted. Both scripts leave us lonely. The wound isn't that we don't want connection, it's that we've forgotten how to ask for it without fear. Silence fills our homes while noise floods our feeds. Isolation creeps in slowly. It's the friend you haven't called, each assuming the other is busy. It's partners at dinner, both tired, waiting for the other to bridge the gap, fearing the risk of reaching out. This isn't a gender war, it's a human drought. We are all thirsty for the same water, to be known, to be safe, to be held without performing. Healing isn't about fixing the other side. It's about recognizing that your neighbor, your coworker, even that person who seems self-contained is likely carrying the same heavy quiet. When we stop viewing isolation as a personal failure or a trait of the opposite sex, we can treat each other with the tenderness we're all craving. We can learn to meet each other in the middle, not with demands, but with gentle curiosity about the weight the other is carrying. We can offer the hand we crave. We can say, "I'm struggling too," and watch walls come down. This shared vulnerability is the bridge. It reminds us we are on the same team, fighting the same drift, and that reaching out is the bravest thing we can do. The data maps the distance, but it can't bridge it. That work belongs to us. As we outline this path, we want to honor our hybrid nature. The Velvet Verdict is built by human writers guided by AI tools. We bring the receipts, but the heart of this mission comes from the shared human desire to belong. We are navigating this drift together, acknowledging that technology helps us see the patterns, while only our collective empathy can mend them. Healing isn't a prescription, it's a daily practice of small, brave choices. For everyone, this starts with softening the internal narrative. When we feel the pull to withdraw or the urge to armor up, we can pause and ask, what am I protecting, and what am I hoping for? Men and women both crave safety and significance. The habits that isolate us often stem from trying to secure those needs alone. We can shift from guarding our hearts to tending them, recognizing that vulnerability isn't a weakness, but the very mechanism of repair. Practical connection looks like curiosity over assumption. It's asking, "How are you really doing?" and waiting for the answer. It's sharing a struggle without demanding a fix, and offering presence without trying to manage the emotion. These micro moments rebuild trust. We don't need grand gestures. We need consistent, gentle signals that we are here, we see you, and we are safe to be with. If the isolation feels crushing, or the weight has become too heavy to carry, please seek support from a licensed professional. This direction is a compassionate perspective, not clinical care, and real crisis deserves real expertise. For the rest of us, the invitation is simple. Take one small step toward the person across the room or across the screen. Lay down the shield. Extend the hand. The bridge is built one honest word at a time. We began by asking how we each drifted into this quiet isolation, and the answer lives in the habits we adopted to stay safe. Men and women alike learned to armor up, mistaking silence for strength and distance for peace. We stopped asking the gentle questions that used to stitch us together, and we let the easy friction of daily life harden into unspoken walls. But isolation is not a permanent condition. It is a pattern, and patterns can be softened. The way back does not require grand gestures or perfect apologies. It asks only for the courage to be slightly less guarded, to trade assumption for curiosity, and to listen long enough to hear the fear or fatigue hiding behind the other person's words. When a conversation turns sharp, pause before reacting. When a message feels cold, assume a bad day rather than a hidden slight. These are not fixes, but they are footholds. Notice how your own shoulders drop when you stop defending and start connecting. This week, I invite you to practice one small act of reconnection. Send a text that simply says, "I've been thinking about you." Ask a partner or friend what they're carrying right now, and let them answer without jumping in to solve it. Share a quiet moment over coffee or a walk, where the goal is just to be present, not to perform. You will likely notice the tension ease, not because the world changed, but because you chose to meet it with open hands instead of crossed arms. Healing the distance between us starts with the willingness to be vulnerably human, together. Thank you for walking this path with us. This episode was crafted through a thoughtful collaboration between human writers and artificial intelligence, designed to honor both the data and the heart.